Good morning, 401. Today we're going to continue with relating decimals and fractions. On Friday of last week, we worked on relating tenths and decimals. Today we are going to work on relating hundredths and decimals. So it will look very similar to what we did on Friday. However, we know from Friday's lesson that tenths are located one place value to the right of the decimal point. Hundredths are located two place values to the right of the decimal point. Now, for the first few problems you're going to see, it'll seem very simple on how we write it, and then there's a little twist that we're going to go over. Because right here, we have 1/100th written as a fraction, where our denominator is 100 and our numerator is 1, because it's 1 out of 100. And then as a decimal, it is 0 and 1/100th, because we have a 0 in our tenths place. Now, when we get into it a little bit later, you're going to see that sometimes with the hundredths, you'll still put a number in the tenths place. It's where the number ends, what place value the number ends in, not where it starts. And I will demonstrate that as we go on. So our first example problem says, in the 2008 Summer Olympic Games, the winning time in the men's 100-meter butterfly race was only 1/100th seconds faster than the second place time. What decimal represents this fraction of a second? Now, we actually can look right at our chart and we can see this. So we know that we're talking about hundredths because our denominator is 100 and then our numerator is 1. So to write it as a decimal, I would write 0 because we have whole numbers and 1/100th. Now remember, it's just a single digit, and I want to make sure that it ends in the hundredths place, which is two place values to the right of the decimal point. So I would just write 0 and 0/10ths and the 1/100th. Now this is where the problem changes a little bit. This problem says, write the fraction or mixed number as a decimal, 55/100ths. So the first thing I can look at is I know it's just going to be a fraction. It's not a mixed number because we don't have any whole numbers. So I can put 0 for my whole numbers and put my decimal. Now I know I have 55/100ths. Now remember, I want my decimal to end in my hundredth place value. I do not want it to start in the hundredth place value. So I will put 55 right after my decimal point because remember, our hundredth place value is two place values to the right of the decimal point. One place value to the right is the tenths. The second is the hundredths. The third is the thousandths. So I want my answer to look like this. Now, if I wrote it 0 and I put a 0 in the tenths place and then wrote it like this, it's actually ending in the thousandths place value, which we will talk about later. So the correct way to write hundredths as a decimal point is it needs to end in the hundredths place value, and I would read this as 0 end, because we say end when we see the decimal point, 55/100ths because it ends in the hundredths place value. Now the third type of problem that you may see today is write the model as a mixed number and a decimal. So for a fraction or mixed number, first thing I'm going to look at is, now we know these all are 10 by 10. So when you see these, it's 10 rows by 10 rows, which will give us 100 because we're talking in hundredths. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that are completely full. So I know my whole number will be 4. Now, when we're looking in our hundredths, it might be hard. You may say, it's going to be tough to count one by one by one all the way up to a number like 30 or something like that, or if it's even further down, 60s. So the way that we're going to count is I have one row completely full, and I know that there are 10 in this row, so it'll be 10. I have another row completely full. That'll be another 10, so that's 20. 10 plus 10 is 20. And then I'll just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 filled in my second row. So it'll be 4 and 20 and 5, 25/100ths. And then the way I'll write that as decimals, I'll put my whole number and then decimal 25 because we want it to end in the hundredths place value.